today I'm going to show you how to create a pattern in Adobe Illustrator. And it's pretty simple to do. You can do this with any drawing. You can draw directly in Illustrator, or you can draw on paper and either photograph or scan your image in and then use image trace to vectorize it before you get started. So I've gone ahead and done just that. I have two images of butterflies that I drew and scanned in and then image traced. And one thing that you want to make sure that you do before you actually create a pattern with these is you want to make sure that any individual parts, like these little circles in the butterfly, are grouped into that butterfly. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a box over this just using my selection tool here and hit Command G to group those. I'll do the same thing with this other butterfly, Command G. Now, you can make a pattern with just one image. You can make a pattern with two images or multiple images. So I could have as many images as I could really fit in this space. The other thing that you want to think about when you're creating a pattern is whatever the size of these butterflies are currently, that size is going to be the size that they are on my pattern too. Also, the placement of the butterflies as well. Having these butterflies right next to each other is going to affect the way that they appear in the pattern. So if I wanted to change that up, I could do that. If I wanted to rotate or reposition these before I got started, I could do that as well. And you'll see what I mean here in a second. Once you have these the way that you want them, you're going to again use your selection tool, that's that black arrow, to draw a box over both of these things. Then go to Object, Pattern, and Make. Now, what we should see, if you've done this correctly, is you should see that your original two butterflies are the dark black color that they originally were, or whatever color they were. And all of the other butterflies are dimmed to, at this point, 30%. If you don't see that, click this down here and then you can adjust it to whatever. If you want it 50%, that's fine. But it's good to be able to see your original butterflies, and I'll show you why that is here in a second. The other thing that you'll notice is if we zoom out here, you can see how big your pattern is going to be. Notice that down here at the bottom it says copies 5 by 5. If I take that up to 9 by 9, notice how that expands. So you can adjust that as you need as you're going along. There are different types of patterns that you can create. Right now, the type of pattern that I'm creating is just a repeating pattern of the same kind of layout that I have for these two butterflies. And it is just, perfectly aligned to those original two butterflies. Now, if I want that shifted a little bit over, I can click on this drop-down menu and go to Brick by Row. And you'll see that that just kind of shifts that top row and bottom row off of my original row here and shifts them over to the left or to the right, depending on how you look at it. I can also do this vertically if I brick by column. So notice that when I do that, these two butterflies kind of bump into each other. So that's fine if I'm comfortable with the look of that, but I don't really like that look as much as the brick by row look. Now there's also the option of doing hex by column or hex by row, and that kind of squeezes the different images in a little bit closer, and I'll show you what that looks like. So here it kind of creates exactly what you would think of a hexagon pattern of those original images. And that can be kind of an interesting kind of look too. It kind of looks like wallpaper to me, where it has these kind of lines that happen. And that doesn't always happen depending on the types of images that you have, but this particular pattern right now reminds me of that. You can also do hex by row, so that's going to be, for some reason, that's also very linear vertically, but it's a different kind of overlapping that we're getting. My favorite currently is the brick by row, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to that. Now, one thing I want to show you too is because I can see my original two butterflies, if I move one of those butterflies, I want you to notice what happens. All of the butterflies move in the extended patterns. So, and that's why I also wanted to group these together before I started, because that just makes it easier to move these individual images once we get going. So you can see how if you wanted to really transform this or move this around and tweak your pattern, you can do that before you save it. So once you're done with your pattern, if you're happy with it, you can go up here to the top where it says save a copy, and you can click on that and title it. So I'm going to title this Butterflies and hit OK. So when you do that, it says the new pattern has been added to the swatches panel. So that's great. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. And then I'm going to use this arrow up here to arrow out of that and get back to where I was. Now I'm going to go ahead, draw a box over these and delete them. And I'm going to go into my rectangle tool and draw a big rectangle over my whole document. And here where it says fill, I'm going to go in and get my butterflies pattern and click, and there we go. So that's really cool. Now, one other thing I'm going to show you how to do, because this is a common question of a lot of people that create patterns, is I'm going to show you how to scale this pattern up and down within a shape without having to go in and create a new pattern. So once you have your pattern, if you decide, I really like this, but I would rather that these butterflies be a little bit smaller so that I could see even more of the pattern in this shape, what you can do is you can go to Object, Transform, Scale. Now when you originally do that, it'll look like the entire box is scaling down. But what you can do to stop that is go down here where it says Transform Objects and uncheck that. And now whatever you put in this box where it says Uniform, like if I were to put 70% and uncheck and check the preview, you can see that just my pattern has scaled down to 70%. And I can do that to 10%, I can do it to 5%, I can do it to any percent that I want to on there. Now you can also do non-uniform if you want to stretch out those butterflies for some reason, or if you have something else you want to stretch out, that would be fine too. But make sure that you uncheck Transform Objects and only check Transform Patterns, and then you can hit OK. So now you know how to create your own pattern, how to modify it by scaling it up and down, and you can do this again with multiple images, so you don't have to stick to just two. Create some different images, or even just one image. You can create one pattern with just one image. So go ahead and create some drawings, experiment with this, and create some fun patterns to play with. All right, good luck.